We're going live. We're going live. And we are live. How's
Wow.
it going, everyone? What was that?
I'm sorry I interrupted your intro. I'm already off to a bad start.
Perfect. Okay. How's it going, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. And welcome to our fifth one on one conversation. And we have a special guest here, our fourth Summer Showdown Champion, Cody, putting in the work, man. Workman. Cody, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Anytime you could start out the night with perfectly reciting the hashtag, you just know it's going to be a good night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How's your day been so far?
Just a typical life of a poor college student, just going from class to class. And yeah, it's a league race night too. So it's a busy night.
Okay. Okay. For sure. So the way how I start these talks, especially with like people that are into NASCAR and NASCAR YouTubers, I usually just ask simply, how did you get into NASCAR? Like, what's your testimony? What did you see, or what inspired you to say, that's it, I'm going to be a NASCAR fan for life?
Yeah, so in 2003, at the age of 5 years old, I was mastering the arts of channel surfing.
Okay.
Uh, and like I remember vividly, I was sitting on the couch. Mama Workman was doing laundry. I was flipping through channels, and then all of a sudden, I see these two cars battling out on this racetrack on a cloudy day. One of them happens to be a red and a gray 97, and the other one is a orange, blue, and white 32. And I think there was maybe like 15 laps or so left to go in the race. And I'm like, oh, this is entertaining. And then a few minutes later, I was watching the last couple laps and saw a 32 and a 97 just hitting each other, beating around, and then saw that amazing finish of the 2003 Darlington race. And so, yeah, that was my first race that I ever saw on TV. Just accidentally coming across channel surfing. So, if there is any race to stumble upon to spike your interest in becoming a NASCAR fan. Nothing like it being the closest race in NASCAR history.
Wow. So how did that make you feel? Like just watching that finish? Like what emotions were
I
running
was
through
like,
you?
I was like, this is cool. Is this what it's all like? And I wanted to basically I kind of wanted to see more of it. And I kind of had some other friends too, like families at the time, like whose families followed NASCAR. And my parents, they didn't really follow it a whole lot, but they had enough knowledge. Like when I was like, hey, what is this? And like, oh, it's NASCAR. It's fun. Like you should watch it all the time. It's like um, so yeah, I gradually watched more and more and more of it, and then I didn't really have a favorite driver up to that point in the beginning stages. But as I was watching more and more races, I noticed that uh, a lot of people would be very cheerful and happy when a particular red car in the number 8 would be taking the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a kid, seeing people get that excited, I was like, oh, a lot of people are happy when this guy takes the lead or does well. They cheer for him. He must be a good guy. I want to cheer for that guy too. And so obviously, I'm talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I started following him a little bit more, just like, seeing him in interviews and stuff like that, I just noticed it seemed like a really, really nice guy, like just in my 5, 6 year old mind. And I was like, I want to cheer for this guy. So yeah, I guess you could say that's how I became a diehard Junior fan, hence the hat
Mm-hmm.
and the beautiful Junior Nation flag in the background.
Woot woot. So you've been a fan of Junior pretty much your entire life. So when Junior retired, do you have a new favorite driver?
Yeah, so like that's because so I've always been like a really like strong been big fan of NASCAR, like this just the history of the sport in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And and being a junior fan, as I got to like sorry, as like being a junior fan, like obviously growing up learning more about who his father was, Dale Senior,
Mm-hmm.
all about the number 3, and I was like, wow, like I've never got to see him on track. But when they announced the return of the number 3 for Cup and Austin Dillon, um, I wasn't necessarily more of a fan of Dillon. I was more of a fan of seeing the 3 back on the racetrack because I never got to see that as a kid.
Mhm.
So I would say I'm more of a fan of the 3 than Austin Dillon, but like, I mean, I'd say well, I would be an Austin Dillon fan, I guess, in saying that, just because it's cool seeing that car up there. But probably like my number one guy um, is I'd say William Byron. When I was actually looking at applying to college, as one of the places I was looking at going was Liberty University,
Mhm.
and obviously that's not where I'm at, but um, just the fact that I was thinking about going there, and I was like, hey, there's Liberty is sponsoring this kid who's coming up through the rings of NASCAR, and just the thing that drawed me to William himself is that I don't think there has been a NASCAR driver who we've like at such a young age who has adapted and progressed through the sport with success as much as William Byron has. He had great success in Legends cars. He had great success in late models, the trucks, and then in his rookie year was one and only season in trucks, and then won was it 4 or 5 races in his Xfinity. The one year he did Xfinity and won the championship, and so and that too, like we're only within a month apart in each other in age, so it's kind of cool to see someone your age out there racing at the cup level on the racetrack. So just between his skill and like his sponsor being Liberty University and how quickly we have seen him adapt and come up through the ranks of NASCAR with success, that's kind of what has drawn me to him to be my new favorite driver.
That's very interesting. So for me, I think I don't know if I told you this, but I was also a big diehard Junior fan majority of my life. But
Salute.
but unlike you though, so I actually got into NASCAR like in the late '90s. So like I've watched it for like over 20 years, which feels so weird, and we can talk about that later. So a big thing that caught my eye was just the designs of the cars, just how colorful
Mhm.
they are, and then just all the number designs on it. It was so like I don't know, there's something really pretty about that. And so my first favorite driver was actually Mark Martin in the six Valvoline car. And so I followed him for a few years. But then in 2001, when he switched over to the Pfizer sponsorship, like there's just something about the car and there's just something about that like that just did not interest me. And true story, but for a couple of years, starting in 2001, starting at the Daytona 500, my favorite driver was Michael Waltrip in the 15. No joke, like the actual
Uh,
Napa car. And so, because one vivid memory I have is when it's before 2001 Daytona 500, my dad was like, "Okay, who are you guys' picks?" My older brother loved Jeff Gordon, so of course he's like, "Oh, Jeff Gordon," and me, I'm like, "Michael Waltrip. He has a nice looking car. I think he'll get it done." And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And so I liked Michael for a while. But then like you, I learned more about the history of like Junior and Earnhardt legacy and stuff like that. And so it was around 2003 was when I decided to switch my allegiance, if you will, to Dale Earnhardt Jr. And he's been my favorite driver until he retired, of course. And then for me, it's been kind of like a what do you call it? Like tryouts, like different drivers that are coming up. They're like, it's like show me, like why should I like you?
mhm.
And we can talk about like I don't know, like likability and whatnot because I don't know. There's a lot of drivers that I just don't see eye to eye with, like I'm just thinking because like Denny Hamlin, Logano, Keselowski, Harvick, Kyle Busch, even Kurt Busch, like they're all there, and I know they're winning, but there's something about the likability about all of them that I just don't see eye to eye with.
Mhm.
And so like last year, I had like my own version of like a tryout between I think it was like 5 drivers. Those 5 being Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, and I think Matt DiBenedetto. And each of those 5, like, and I just watched, and not just how they performed on the track, but also like the whole likability level. Um, the part that I turned around on and I've made a final decision on was actually really recent, like a couple of weeks ago at Talladega, and it was Ryan Blaney. There's just something
Mhm.
about him that is like charismatic and a lot more, I guess, likable. He's also like a good driver as well. The fact that he was able to get around Newman on the inside at the very end was
Newman,
phenomenal.
Newman of all people,
I know, and
of
it's one.
all people for Blaney to have to pass on the last lap. Like
Yeah,
Newman,
yeah,
he is the hardest guy to get around, and he just found a way to get underneath that. I was like, wow, how's
and
that for irony?
I know, and I know a lot of people like really wanted Newman to win, but since I like Blaney, like it was the first time like that I actually like got out of my couch and was like yelling. It's like, yeah, Blaney won. It's so cool and whatnot. But going back to Junior though, so I guess a question for you: have you ever listened to the Dale Junior Download podcast?
Oh yeah, all the time I listen to it. Like kind of like I mean, like I don't necessarily listen to it in its entirety. Like I'll go back and watch episodes. Like I'll watch those little like 10 to 15 clips of his podcast that's posted later on YouTube, and I'll go listen back and listen through those. But like kind of like one of my favorite episodes that was when he brought Tony Stewart on, and like Tony, he was actually my second favorite guy too.
Hmm.
And so with that being said, you could like I was really excited when they would go to Daytona or Talladega because those two would always work so well together.
Hmm.
And let's see, when they were chatting about it, I remember like they were talking about the 2004 500, which Junior won,
Yep.
and like listening like how well those two could work together, like and like those were the only two guys that had that similar mindset of restrictor plate racing. I mean, Tony talked about like he would work with Junior over his teammate of Bobby Labonte at the time because Bobby's strategy at the plate tracks wasn't Stewart's strategy.
Hmm.
But Tony was like, hey, I know he's not a teammate, but if I can stick with this guy, even if I don't get the win, if I get second place, hey, that's still a great points day for us. So, um, but yeah, I just love listening to those podcasts. I love that he's involved with TV broadcasting on NBC now.
Hmm.
Like he isn't totally out of the spotlight. He's always like, even though he's retired from full time racing, at least, that he is still present in the NASCAR community. Fans can still see him
Hmm.
on a weekly basis, whether if it's like the point of the season where NBC has a broadcast or when they just tune in for his podcast. I think it's great that he's still putting himself out there in the community.
Hmm. Hmm. So I when you were talking, I thought of a question, but then I forgot it. But
Good.
um, shoot, so are you? Okay, I guess we'll go this direction. So are you aware that so have you played the game NASCAR Thunder 2004?
NASCAR Thunder 2004 was the very first NASCAR video game that I ever played
Okay,
on the PlayStation 2.
that's
I am very aware with that video game.
that's funny because that's actually mine too for the PS2 was NASCAR Thunder 2004 as well. I bring that up
Beautiful.
because on there the allies I remember that Junior and Stewart like are immediately allies in the game.
Yep. Yep.
I just think that's
They
so
knew.
I just think that's
Everyone everyone knew.
no, I just think that's so crazy because it's like they like know each other, they can link up, and it's like, oh man, we're such good friends, and it's like, wow, that's and they're not teammates, which because you brought that up, and I just
Yeah.
think that's so bizarre,
Hmm.
if you will. But
Yeah.
going back to the podcast, because did you listen to the most recent one with Ricky Rudd? Ricky Rudd, the
I actually have not listened. I have not actually listened. Yeah, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think if your question was if I listened to the most recent podcast,
yeah,
no, I haven't. I actually need to catch up a little bit on the past couple podcasts that he's done. But,
okay. Yeah, so like I listened to that, and so the part I wanted to just mention and how it brings up Junior, just what we're talking about is just pretty much like Rudd's relationship with like Dale Senior, and so one like what if that immediately came to my mind was like what if Ricky Rudd stayed at Richard Childress Racing because in 1984. Ricky Rudd went over to Bud Moore's team, the 15 team, while Dale Earnhardt went back to the 3 car.
Hmm.
And it just made me wonder, like, how much, like, would DEI still exist? Would Dale Jr. still, like, drive the 8 car? Would Dale Earnhardt be with Bud Moore? Like,
Hmm.
that stuff, like, fascinates me. And I just love, like, I don't know if you've seen my videos in the past, but, like, I am a huge fan of just, like, of alternating reality, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe just
Like, what if this happened? Or
well, like I don't know if you know this, but like my top video is what if Dale Earnhardt was still alive? Are you aware that I made a video called "What if
hmm.
Dale Earnhardt was still alive"? I'm probably
Yeah,
breaking up,
yeah.
but
I think I I I think yeah, a little bit, but I think I don't know. I don't know if it was you that made, like, is it an older video
yeah,
that you've made? Like, it was like in
2016.
parts.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I'm pretty. So that must have been you, and it's kind of funny because we only known each other since about this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was remember it was kind of talking about, like, I think it went like I'm going to assume it's you, that your videos that I was watching, but I remember it went year by year almost,
Yep.
saying, like, what could have happened between, like, potential drivers, like, in different rides. Like, I
Yep.
know, like, Kevin Harvick was a huge outcome. I know, like, it even brought something about, like, back in, like when it got up to, like, the late 2000s, talking about, like, I think they brought up something like push the pass or whatever. And I think it's kind of funny because now, coming up in the next couple of years or so, like, they're thinking about going to hybrid engines now. And so, kind of funny, like, that was mentioned in that video, and then now we're actually getting close to that.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't want to take the credit if they do go that direction because like I was not like speculating or anything like that. It's just I don't know. Like I don't want to take the
Well,
credit.
great job.
Thank you, thank you for sure. So I guess just fun kind of random question, but like what if like would you want to see like what thing in NASCAR in the past would you like to see like an alternate reality of?
But I guess, like, if anything, like, I don't know, it's not necessarily like alternate reality. I mean, I just loved how those Gen 4 cars raced. I feel like the best racing that NASCAR ever had was between like 2003, 2004, all the way up to 2007.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, cars, like, when a car pulled up right behind another car in the corner, they were still glued to the racetrack. There was none of this, aero loose stuff going on, or
Mm-hmm.
like this air bubble that was keeping the cars, you know, separate from each other. If a guy was coming up, if the leader was up front here and they were coming around the corner and the guy was closing, 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 he could get right up to his quarter panel and be able to get up underneath them or whatever and produce some great racing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was one of those people that when the car tomorrow came out, I was not a fan of it at all.
Yep.
And um, so yeah, between that and then later, like, we obviously have, like, the economic crash that happened in late 2008, early 2009. I mean, I feel like I kind of had a part of fan turnout a little bit, but still, like, NASCAR has had the opportunity to bounce back from it, and it just hasn't uh, bounced back. I mean, I know, like, had like how Bristol was like the go-to track where you had to wait and, like, reserve tickets practically a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen was the spring race this year, where turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 were completely empty.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had people sat on the straightaways. And, like, when you're someone who grew up in that era, especially during your childhood, seeing how packed racetracks were and, like, how racing was, and then you see where it is now, and, like, for the past couple of years, like, it's just, like, sad and heartbreaking, almost. But I will say, though, that what this new aero pack is, I know some love it, some don't love it. But I'm, like, becoming a really, really growing fan of it. Like I feel like we've seen a lot tighter racing, like in general. Not necessarily at all tracks, like for example Dover. Dover was a terrible race in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I feel like NASCAR has stepped up its game in the past year, and like we see that through TV ratings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So that brings up like a thought, because you see how like NASCAR is changing, but like as you said, because you've watched racing since 2003, you followed NASCAR for a while, and so you grew up
Mm-hmm.
watching NASCAR as like myself, and so there's no hard answer to this, and which is why I want to bring this up. Is it NASCAR that's really changing, or is it just our perception of NASCAR that has changed, but NASCAR itself has always been like this sport that's always been about change? Do you know what I mean by when I ask
Well,
that?
yeah, yeah, I definitely know you're talking about change. 'Cause I mean, like, because forever since practically the beginning of NASCAR till 2003, I mean, I'll use this as an example.
Mm-hmm.
There was one point system. It never changed really in that entire first 55 years of the sport.
Right. Yeah.
Then we get to 2004, the first year of the chase,
Yep.
and like I mean, I was still like, I was still young enough like to really like, remember recall people's opinions of it back then. But then it was just a simple, hey, top 10 in points after race 26 is a reset with bonus points based off how many races you won, and then it was just the final 10 races of the season between 10 drivers, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the same. And then changed a few years later where they added drivers, where they added like, hey, instead of 10 drivers, 12 can make the chase now. Then they added the fact of like between just like the changes in the cars themselves. Then it was a change in eventually the points, like the point structure, and then the chase today, which we now know is the playoffs. So, like, I know personally because I know my parents, like speaking on a personal level, like my parents, like when I got involved in NASCAR, they got involved in NASCAR a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just kind of like like when I'm trying to explain all these changes to them and stuff, like they're like, wait, what? Like,
Yep.
what's going on here? And
Yep.
I feel like in doing stuff like that, NASCAR, like one, they kind of lost like their. I know a lot of people say this, but they lost like their base where like just like between like we see how they were not they were moving out of their base from like the southeast, the south, and trying to reach like the casual race fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just that, I mean, I know a lot of people have said that before, but um, I mean, just kind of like they really lost like a lot of those fans. How maybe they weren't a diehard, but they still liked loving to tune in and seeing a race like 3 out of 4 weeks or something like that. And just I feel like with all those changes, they're like, too much for me to keep up with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, for me, like with now that we have like the playoff points and stuff like that, the thing is, I do get like the points, and I do understand, but I can understand like a casual fan's point of view, like where it does seem complicated with like you win this race, you get like 5 playoff points, but it's like wait, doesn't you get like 47 other points? But it's like no, that's the regular points, and so I can and but the thing is, like again, I can see like that working, and if it's one of those things where it's like if they maybe implemented it like when NASCAR was first formed, like 50 years ago, we wouldn't have such a big
Mm-hmm.
problem with this. But I think just my issue just with NASCAR now is this circus gimmicky stuff where they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to like force all of this like drama and
Yeah.
action and not to get too in depth, but like I even noticed too, and again, NASCAR on NBC is doing a great job. But one little thing that irks me is whenever the reporter or interviewer try like ask a question to try to provoke some form of emotion or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are cooking food, so
Uh
the
oh.
smoke alarm is going off.
Live
So
entertainment, everybody.
yeah, right. As I
Hey, at least at
as I
least
burn alive here in South Dakota, you guys all enjoy your popcorn and enjoy haha seeing Griffin being burned. Sorry. Anyway,
just pour some snow on it.
don't joke about that.
Hey, I was supposed to be getting 5 to 8 inches of snow over here in northern Illinois. This,
Really?
but yeah,
That's
between
bizarre. Yeah, we got nothing here in South Dakota.
Mhm.
Wow. Lucky or not lucky you. But no, anyway,
It's
back to
some
what
of
I,
us you can.
back to what I was saying though about the NASCAR reporters. Just like for example with the fight with like Hamlin and like Logano, like some of the questions that Snyder asked, like they just did not seem like what's the word, like just, if you will. I need to look back on the interview, but just someone where they're like trying to like get him like all emotional and trying to make him like fight or something like that. It just seems off. And like the thing is, I don't mind them like fighting each other. Like that's cool. But like again, the idea when you're trying to like, force that and the media is trying to like push that, I personally find that as like a turnoff because that's not why I got into NASCAR in the
Mhm.
first place. So I guess my question after that then is like, what are your thoughts on like fights and like what do you think about like has NASCAR gone down a more, if you will, like gimmicky route?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as like between like with this new chase playoff structure, whatever you want to call it, it almost seems like it's almost like they're trying to make an unscripted WWE almost, where it's like
Yes,
I I just want to see these guys race and not like this extra emotion
this extra
out there.
drama
Like yeah, like
bullshit.
like I have like kind of like there's like there's like an saying like don't jump the shark.
Yep,
And
yep.
I feel like NASCAR has done that with all of these different playoff structures and
Mm-hmm.
all this other stuff. Or like, they're trying to, bring too much of a good thing. Like, I mean, drama is good because drama keeps you entertained, but like too much of that, it's like, whoa, back it down. I mean,
Right, and
like
that's not
it's a
why.
mix. Yeah, it's a mix of like, just let them race. I mean, that's what we want to see. And
Right, and that's not why I got into racing. And so, actually, just a
Mhm.
little backstory. I when I was a kid, around again mid 2000s, I was actually a big WWE fan myself. Actually, big fan of like John Cena, Batista, Undertaker, Big Show, those guys. But then it was like 2008 or so. That's when I stopped watching it because it did, as we were talking about, it just got more like drama and just like I just liked seeing them like fight and like the blood and stuff like that. But now we're in this like PG era thing with
Yeah,
WWE, and I've never looked back on WWE. It just did not
yeah.
interest me in the slightest. And I see a lot of people compare like NASCAR to WWE, and honestly, I find that a little disgusting in my opinion, just because like I feel like NASCAR is more quote unquote pure than WWE.
hmm
But when they add these gimmicky things like the playoffs and this fighting and the inconsistency, it's a little
hmm
it's a I don't know. I find it very irking, if you will. Now, like one thing that Oak 32 Assassin mentioned on the live chat is they were promoting the fight for Texas. I I don't know about you, but I don't mind that. Like if they're doing it as like a promo like banner to like to show that like fight, I guess I don't mind that so much.
Yeah, I
But I'm
mean, it's something like that helps bring in the fans and stuff. But
right. But there's just I don't know. There's more to NASCAR than just like those fights, if you will. And I guess what I'm talking more about is like in the moment, where like for example, if like Marty Snyder or Dave Burns or whoever like goes in and is like what are your thoughts or feelings and like what are you gonna say to Logano? It's just like dumb. It's so dumb. And I always not to get too far off track, but I always hate when like someone says a quote
Mhm.
and that's a headline for like news.
Yeah,
And it's like that doesn't do anything. There's no
hmm
action taken there. And it's so dumb. It's not news. It's not news at all. Like sure Logano said that, or like with the thing with Almirola and Kyle Busch. Like, sure, Almirola is gonna give hell to Kyle Busch or whatever, and it's like, yeah, talk is great, but once we see action, then I'll
hmm
listen. As funny as it
yeah.
sounds.
I think of
So
Kenseth. I think of Kenseth when you say that.
yeah, yeah.
I think of
Uh,
Kenseth.
so I definitely want to talk about like esports. Let's get into that. But before we do you have any, I guess, final thoughts about just NASCAR? And I guess maybe like fun question: if you are Jim France and if you could do one change to NASCAR, either to go back to something or to make something new, what would you do?
Oh boy, if I was CEO chairman,
Pressure.
well, first off, uh, like I said, I would look back and be like, okay, where were we at before this downfall? Like, like what did we have going for us? And
Mm-hmm.
I look at, and the number one thing I would look at is, I would look at the product on track.
Yep.
So, like, so my hope is that with this new Gen 7 car that's coming out,
Mm-hmm.
that it gets us as close to the racing that we had with the Gen 4 era. I
Mm-hmm.
personally feel like if we could get an aero package that is similar to, if not possibly better than the Gen 4 era,
Mm-hmm.
from an on track perspective, I think that would be great. But also like just trying to reach race fans. And I think like what Barstool Sports is doing like right now,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're bringing in those fans that NASCAR is trying to go after.
Yep.
And like we even kind of see what the reaction from the people at Barstool themselves. So like them getting advertisement on Matt DiBenedetto's car for several races now,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just see the viewership going up. Um, it's a start, but I think that if they keep doing the right things and they keep doing the right moves, if Jim France and Steve Phelps like continue to like listen to drivers and like, but also like looking at fans' interest in mind and not trying to like create this intense hype, I think NASCAR will continue to keep growing.
I like that. I like that answer. Just keep it simple. And so the one challenge I have, because you mentioned like back in the good old days, like what was going good for us. I mentioned the question a little bit ago about how either NASCAR has changed or our mindsets have changed. A lot of us have like phones now, like
Mm-hmm.
smartphone devices, and a
Yeah, for
lot of
streaming. Yeah.
yep, and a lot of people are like, and again, I don't want to make assumptions, but it seems like our attention rates are just plummeted.
Yeah.
And so I just
Oh yeah.
wonder if that is a big part of the decline of NASCAR. Like, do we need shorter races?
Well,
Do we need to do like heat races just to keep the attention
well,
span
well.
up?
When you bring it up, I can't remember who I was watching. It may have been when I was listening to uh, Dave Moody or someone on Sirius XM NASCAR radio one day, but like all sports are experiencing that, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you bring up a great point. Like when we didn't have smartphones and stuff like that, everyone's focus was purely on like either those who were around them or on the game itself or whatever.
Yep.
Now, like how many times like was it during a commercial or like during a stop to play like check the check this oh who snapped me like like who liked my
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and then you're not even paying attention to what's going on. So when you mention that, I think yeah, that's definitely a fair assumption to make.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you? If I don't know if you're on your phone, but some of the commercials like NASCAR has now, like with those drug commercials and the God, I don't even know the names of them, but like the one with like the old guy with like the wolf. It's like watch out, piggies, and then they blow out like the cake. It's just
Oh yeah, those it's
God,
a little cheesy.
a little cheesy, but also does not relate to us at
Uh-huh.
all. It's so.
Like I remember growing up, like looking like watching all the Dale Jr. commercials, the commercials of
Mhm.
Dale Jarrett racing in the truck.
Yes, yeah. Or
That's one of my
or
favorite
even
cars.
like those fun like one commercial I remember from 2003. Do you remember a, Wrangler commercial where it had what's his name? Steve Matthews Band or whatever? Rockin' Me Babe, where it's like let's see, all the way to Tacoma, Philadelphia, Atlanta,
Hmm.
LA. And so like that commercial place is so pure and it's
Hmm.
so like genuine and so nice. Except that then you get these dumb like commercials or commercials where it's like in your face, like the new Subway commercials, hot
Hmm.
because you're drinking the Subway cup.
Uh-huh.
But like the commercials are like in
Sorry, Rusty Walrus.
Yeah, so like you got the commercial like in your face, and it's like you got this like sub in your face and all these colors, and it's just flashing at you, and just
Mhm.
like stop it. What are you
Yeah.
trying to sell? What are you trying to promote? You don't need all these like flashing colors to try to get our attention. It's kind of nauseating. So,
Mhm.
kind of a little rant there. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about esports. That's why I put
Yeah.
you on here. I know we've been talking for like 35 minutes. We've not talked about esports at all. And
Yeah.
by the way, Sloppy Joe is in the live chat, and he says, "What's up?" So,
Hey,
we,
Stoppy.
we won't go there just yet. So,
Yeah.
let's start
Hold
with
that. Hold that thought.
yeah. So let's
Yeah.
start with I know we talked about NASCAR 2004 for a second, but let's just talk about your I guess your NASCAR video game just career. Like, how much of it did you play? Did you play all the games? Like, what? How did you get to where we are now?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, my very first NASCAR video game I played was when like back in 2003, 2004, when I started really getting into NASCAR, and parents bought me a PS2, and the very first video game they got me was NASCAR 2004. And just in that game itself, I feel like that when you look at video games and the time period that they were in, like NASCAR Thunder 2004 and EA Sports, they hit the nail on the head in getting a quality product out for that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Between like the drafting models, the physics that they had for that time period, the soundtrack, I feel that NASCAR Thunder 2004 has the best soundtrack out of any NASCAR game out there.
What's your favorite song
Um,
from the soundtrack?
Gosh, there's there's so many of them. Let's see. I liked this time. Uh, was I think it's Action. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
by
that
Power
is
Man
like
5000.
yeah, that's
Yep.
the one I'm thinking of. I like
Yep.
I like
Mm-hmm.
yep. Yeah, so those were like my favorite songs on that soundtrack. But so yeah, anyway, there's that, and then every 2 years was when my parents would buy me the new NASCAR video game. So they bought me '06, and then eventually bought NASCAR '08,
Mm.
and then '09, and then that's when EA Sports stopped making uh,
Video
NASCAR
games.
games up to
Yeah.
that point. And I never got a PS3. I just had a PS. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's when. So I didn't get a PS3, but I just kept on my PS2. And keep in mind, I was just like, I obviously didn't really have online functions at that point, but I would just play AI and stuff like that. And like friends of mine who would have Xbox 360 or PS3, if I would go over to their house, whatever, we would rent the newer NASCAR games up to that time.
Mm-hmm.
So with Technics, when they got the rights to that between NASCAR 2011, then Inside Line, and then NASCAR 14, 15. Uh, and then it wasn't until freshman year of college where my roommate, he had a PS4, and then NASCAR Heat Evolution came out. And I didn't buy it until well, I think like it was on sale for Black Friday, and that's when I bought NASCAR Heat Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And so was playing that a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is like Dirt to Daytona. Um, so that's how it kind of brought back some memories there. Um, but then I didn't start racing online until like February of 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and like because like my roommate, because it was still like on my roommate's account, and then I made my own account, and we didn't have PlayStation Plus at that point. So just because the poor college student I was.
Mm-hmm.
So invested in PlayStation Plus for my account, and then started racing online for the very first time. And I was like, oh, so this is new. I'll give it a try. So funny thing is, and I don't want to be boastful when I say this, but like I was racing guys in like the first week or so, and uh, and like people would be asking me like, "Hey, you're a new guy. I haven't seen you. Like, how long have you been racing here, or whatever? Are you this guy?" I'm like, "No, I just started this week online." And they all thought I was lying. I was like, "No, I've just like raced AI my entire NASCAR video game life until around this time period." So, um, right around then is when started to get invited being participating in leagues. Um, I know, like the guy that gave me my first opportunity to race in a league was Adam Heasley and Tanner Brown. Um, they formed the NASCAR at that time was the Rockstar Cup Series, and my very first Cup start, my very first league race at Texas. Little contact between me and Adam actually in the last couple laps, but my very first league race was ended up being my first win. So
Mm,
like just kind of at that point was like, hey, I haven't been on near as long as these other guys have, but I know that maybe I am pretty talented in this, and maybe I can do more leagues and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got my start.
interesting. So, for me, so nothing against you and racers, but I just never seem to really got the grip on like racing, like
Mhm.
online with the NASCAR games. So I mentioned a couple of times, but I really focus more on like creating and like painting cars. So
Mhm.
my first NASCAR video game I ever got was NASCAR Racing 1999 edition, all the way back in 1998. I think I got it as a Christmas gift. And throughout pretty much the majority of my life, I was just painting cars from and I mentioned it before, but like for example, in 2003, I would like spend the summer painting 2004 cars because I would think like, what would the roster be like in 2004, and I would paint those. But I would go ahead and I would do some like races. And one of my achievements I made when I was like 8 years old was I won a 500 lap race on NASCAR 99, and I was an idiot and I like got up from my chair thinking it was like the top of the car and I was like woo woo, and then I like jumped off. I like landed wrong and bruised my knee because I was, really smart. Um, but like with like NASCAR 2004 and Chaser the Cup and whatnot, it's like I would play it for a little while, but I just never got fully invested into it. I don't know if it's just because of how long a race is or whatever. And so like when I do my streams, which is on Xbox and not
Mhm.
PS4, I'm sorry. Like I'll
We're,
race and whatnot, and
we're
it's
waiting
like,
for you.
yeah, that's what I've heard. I would like get into like the race, and like I feel kind of natural when I do race. Like I have an idea where my brakes are, but I don't know like the details. Like I'm still a hashtag automatic shifter. Like I don't deal with manual
Mhm.
just because like that's one more responsibility that I have to deal with, and that's just because I don't like deal with racing. And like the only times I do like racing is when I do my streams, and that's just because of the work I'm doing right now as well as the creative stuff I'm doing right now just to try to, get somewhere in my life is just taking up so much of my time. So my question off of that then is just talking about naturally. So like you mentioned how you just recently got into the online racing. My question is like, did it feel natural? Like, did you like were you able to like hit the corners right, or like did that I guess take some time for you to really figure out how to drive a car online?
Well, strangely, like it just, I guess that's kind of like what you said. It just kind of came natural. I mean, and I think what I would kind of accredit it to, I mean, part of it too is like, that's like, I mean, I had other video games growing up, but like, 80-90% of my video game playing time was, was playing NASCAR.
Hmm.
So just naturally like getting gifted and building skill on that, but also like I'm one of those midwestern farm kids who have been operating like tractors and machinery about as far as they've been breathing and on this planet. So
Hmm.
like I kind of would like to say like that those kind of contribute that, so just like operating or and then just driving things in general in the real world or virtual world. Like I just noticed how like when I was like and NASCAR Heat Evolution, like granted, like the physics weren't all that good, like then, um, but like I'd be like one of the only people that would like be backing up the corners, like on entry, was able to keep that line held on the bottom, where a lot of people they would drive it a little bit, they lose a little bit of red on exit, and I was able to pick up on that stuff, and then just like within the draft and stuff, I mean, obviously they didn't have like anywhere near the draft components or realism that they had then. But like I was like starting to learn then, like, okay, if you're wanting to hold off a guy or want to get a run on the guy, like, okay, here's like how you need to set up like the run through the corners, or like, hey, this is how you pull up pull up in the middle of the corner as the guy's catching up on you so that he can catch up to your back bumper in the corner and not coming off the straightaway and get a run. So just kind of like paying attention to little stuff like that. And now, since I've been online now since February 2017, and now it's October 2019. So like now, like just like 2.5 years now of online experience. And like, I keep telling myself, like, I'm just like out here trying to learn new stuff every day. What's something new I can learn?
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I've been applying, especially with the new physics now in Heat 4.
For sure. Do you use a steering wheel or do you use the controller for your driving?
A lot of people think I'm a liar when I say this, but I use the regular good old black PlayStation 4 controller.
So have you ever used a wheel before?
At the NASCAR Hall of Fame when they had their iRacing simulator. That was it. No, I've never. None of my friends, they've never had like any steering wheel, car wheels, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, have never attempted a NASCAR video game other than iRacing at the Hall of Fame with a steering wheel. So
Gotcha. So then are you one of those guys, and I'm since you've done this for so long, when you turn, do you do that thing where you like nick it
tap
or
tap.
do you still do that? Or
Um, so like early in the EA Sports games is when I would nick it, but um, I actually got what actually taught me to drive it by just able to hold the stick just steadily and not doing tap tap tap.
Mhm.
Um, it was actually Dirt to Daytona,
Yes.
and Dirt to Daytona. I didn't like play that or get that until when I was like maybe 12 years old. So like 2009. And I
Mhm.
think that was kind of like during that span of like, hey, new NASCAR games came out. Like, oh, here's this game. Like, I never played before, and I got that, and that's what kind of taught me to hold the wheel steady a little bit with thumb and everything, and not having to go tap 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 tap. I learned how to turn off stability assist and things that like that. And I feel like that's when I graduated from tap dancing and learned how to just hold a steady wheel.
Oh, that's funny they brought up Dirt Daytona because I put that up as one of my favorite video
Mm-hmm.
games, NASCAR video games.
Yeah.
Are you aware that the people that made Dirt Daytona are making these NASCAR Heat video
Yep.
games?
Yep. As soon as I saw Monster Games in the intro of NASCAR Heat Evolution, and well, actually that, and then when I just saw the name NASCAR Heat, I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second, those are the same people that made NASCAR Heat back in 2000, and same people that made Dirt to Daytona. So,
Hmm.
and I'm like like the car engines and crew chiefs sound exactly the same.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now they've obviously graduated and evolved since then,
Hmm.
but yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that was kind of a good segue.
Are you aware that so that company actually, well, I don't know about now, but for sure when they made Dirt Daytona is actually based out of Minnesota.
Actually, no, I did not know of that about Minnesota.
So
That's where they originated.
So here's the trivia, and if you look back at the Dirt Daytona games, if you look at the names of all of the modified tracks and dirt tracks in that game, all the names are cities in Minnesota.
I noticed that. I noticed that about when we were driving through when we were driving through like because we always take like family takes like summer vacation trips stuff like that, and we went out to Rushmore in that area my 8th grade
Yep.
year,
Mm-hmm.
and I we came across like Mankato. I was like,
Yep.
wait a second, Mankato's one of the dirt tracks.
Yep. Yep.
And I
Yep.
look at some of these other places like what was it, Hastings and
Yep.
uh,
Egan,
Baxton,
Anoka,
Baxton.
Baxter.
Yep,
Yeah. So two quick little fun facts. So first of all, Mankato was a short track that's in a modified series. I went to college just 10 miles north of Mankato. Fun
really.
fact. Yeah, so I was that close. And then also, Baxter was actually a town I lived in for a year, like in real life. The dirt track, of course, doesn't exist, but yeah, all those tracks are actual Minnesota cities. And it's so cool because I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually lived in Minnesota majority of my life. So it's like,
I can
oh,
tell a little bit on the accent,
oh yeah,
just a little bit.
all we have some nice people here. Don't you want to come here and chop
I've
down
had
some trees?
I've had some people ask me if I've been from Minnesota. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, like, am I gonna go out there on the sled down by the lake
Oh yeah, where it
because
snows
I'm
every single
fishing?
day. Come and have some hot chocolate with us. Yeah. Oh, I love it. But
Yeah.
so 2019 Summer Showdown. So I got a question. Like, what got you interested in joining the Summer Showdown?
Well, so basically it's all kind of part of like, and I kind of like to go into that at the kind of like backwards a little bit. So like this was coming off of not too long after the pro league selection process ended.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, like pro league got announced back in November of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the qualification process started for it early in December and went through early mid January. And like I didn't know obviously what was like to come of it. Like for me personally, like like I don't know if I'll be up there or not, especially because uh, I didn't really invest heavily into custom setups really
Mm-hmm.
until when Heat 3 came out when they announced Road to Miami, and that's when I got involved in customs then. And I had some people help me out along the way there and making setups and giving me advice there. But then when the Pro League announcement came out, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm probably gonna need to learn how to make custom setups now and like learn the ways around it and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
um, put a work in that, and I heard that they were gonna come out with a top 50 list and all that. And it's like, well, I don't know if I'll be top 50, but I don't know, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear Scott Cole say, Workman, I got you ranked 14th. Like,
Whoa.
what? I was like, what? I was like,
Whoa.
are you sure you may have said four? Like, and like he was like going through a live stream of like of having people like where he was like had him ranked and stuff when he was in live streams tuning in on like the qualification process towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, hey, where you got me? And he said 14th. And then that's when I was like, I think I got a shot at this thing. So long story short, went through the showcase races, and basically when Scott Cole was making his mock draft board, he had me ranked anywhere from 14th to 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so draft day, um, names going through. I see guys just above me and just below me getting picked in this draft board, and then the final name gets called out, and like didn't get picked. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so obviously, I mean, it was devastating because you've been working uh, for 3 months up to that point, thinking like hey, I got a shot to race for a real life NASCAR team,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's in the virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so like I saw like like a lot of people are like, oh, the like the draft process was BS, whatnot, and like I mean, I was frustrated, not to the process, but just like the fact of working hard for that long, and you got as close as possible to getting there, but to have nothing to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was upset about it, but then literally like just days after, it's like, okay, what can I do now to try to improve my chances for Heat 2?
Mm-hmm.
Or not Heat 2, but for Pro League Season 2
Yep.
of the Heat Pro League.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I was looking at, okay, like what leagues am I in right now? And the league I was in at the time, it had great competition, but I was like basically a guaranteed guy to win there every single week, and I was winning half the races up to that point, like in
Mm-hmm.
the first 9-10 races of that season. So um, I just chose to um, look at like what leagues were out there, and Midnight Broadcasting Network just started up. Excuse me. That just started up, and they had their Cup Series, and Slade Gravett, who was the number one draft pick, got drafted by Wood Brothers. Like was kind of telling me, hey, I kind of want to race with like leagues to have this great competition so I could push myself. And instantly he welcomed me aboard, and I ran a few starts there. And I was like, okay, racing with this league that has 7-8 pro league drivers in it, that can help me build up like my skill, getting used to that competition.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the PR side, like they're just the social media side, really started getting into Twitter, and just kind of posting like my esports progress in general. Was started generally started building a following there, and then on the YouTube side, just like constantly posting live streams from my onboard and perspective. It's mainly been league races. Once in a while, I'll jump in and like I'll live stream some open lobbies or whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, like okay, what steps can I do to basically just help me get my name out there for season two? So during this time, I got to meet quite a bit of the NASCAR YouTubers, guys who were in the core league,
Mm-hmm.
and got into Carnation Cup as well. Um, those are, I mean, I don't consider that serious, like really like as serious as some of these other ones that I've been, but it's a series that has some YouTubers in it. Like a lot of people watch it. So like, okay, being in a series like that, that's like popular, a lot of people watch it. It'll help me get my name out there.
Mm-hmm.
And being in a series like that helped me get that popularity boost and help people know, like, hey, there's this guy who's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So being in that, basically got the attention from some of the NASCAR YouTubers who, during a time when you guys were talking about putting this Summer Showdown together, about me being invited to run the Open. And I was like, wow, like, so obviously I have to be a top five driver in this Open um, to advance to the Showdown. But dang, if I could make that Showdown, like, I have a feeling like the PR and everything, it can just go up. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I got invited to it, and that was got the official. Well, at first I think we had to kind of put our interest in it first, but Darian and Jarrett Lundberg and Rust and Caleb Hoffman, and they were gracious enough to let me be a part of that, and yeah.
Cool. Well, those are definitely some good guys.
Mhm.
So just I guess just throughout the race, and I guess just it's interview time. Just like I guess, what are your thoughts on the actual race itself?
Yep. So I'm having to go back a few months now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm going to assume Sloppy is still in here. So okay, here we go.
How's it going,
So
Sloppy? All
I,
right, go ahead.
hi buddy. Alrighty. So, so obviously had to get in through the Open, and there were some really talented guys in the Open. You had Slade who was in there.
Were there a
Uh,
couple of other esports drivers that were in
yeah,
the Summer
yeah.
Showdown?
So Slade got invited to run in that. Diego Alvarado, who's an Xbox Pro Leaguer,
Hmm.
he got invited to run that. Some of my Carnation Cup drivers who I feel like are some of the best in their age range and
Hmm.
all of online racing right now.
Mm-hmm.
They were in there too. So in the Open, I was towards the front. Led the majority of it, and then there was a caution that came out early. Uh, some guys pitted early and were able to stretch it towards the end, but we were able to finish with a third or fourth and be one of the top five guys to make it to the main event.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we had to start in the back, and it was a little stressful knowing that the last five guys running at the end of each stage will get eliminated. Um, but yeah, stage one worked our way through the field, and caution came out, and ended up getting wrecked and put down pit road. And right before I got put a lap down, another caution came out, and I was back in 17th, 18th at this time. And then there's just a few cautions toward the end of stage one. I was able to make some passes on the outside and was able to get top 15, which was about the cutoff. So survived the cutoff there. Um, Stage two, stayed out because I was like, okay, I don't want to start in the back of that mess again. So I
Mm-hmm.
was a little short on fuel, and so I had to save a little bit there with Sloppy, VKR, I think What If, and maybe that's who was up there. I can't remember exactly everyone who was up there,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, just having to save fuel a little bit, and was like, okay, I think I got enough fuel saved here in stage two. I'm going to push it, and then half a lap to go, fuel started sputtering, and I saw an extra $50 bonus waving bye, and Sloppy drove around me off the final corner to
Yep.
stage two. So yeah, stage three started, and that's when racing really picked up. Basically, it was me and Sloppy that drove away. Um, Basically, since the drop of the green flag, like there was really hard racing. Like I would get a run off the corner, I would go back, like go to the inside, and Sloppy would come down and throw a block. There's once in a while I would actually have a nose there, kind of shove me down there a little bit. So it was getting a little frustrating just because of like, hey, there's like 80, 90, 100 laps to go in
Mm-hmm.
this race still. But, when there's $200 on the line, you're going to be aggressive and make moves like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like he pulled away just a little bit, like after the first few laps of that run. But as the tires started getting worn a little bit, I feel like I was better on worn tires and was slowly catching him. I was on his bumper. We swapped back and forth a little bit. And then we get to the situation where, so we're battling.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes low off two. And we're battling so hard to this point, and I'm like, you're just kind of caught in the battle that's happening.
Yep.
I was like, oh, he may be pitting. I'm not sure. I don't know. So like we go down to turn three, and I saw him. He drifted up like in the moment. It seemed like he drifted up a little bit. I was like, okay, he's not pitting. He was just doing something. I don't know. And then he just stops, and I'm like, crap, he was pitting. So I was like, okay, whatever. So next lap we come in, and then we come out, and then I look at my leaderboard. I don't see Sloppy anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh crap, I just sent that dude down pit road speeding. He's probably not very happy. Sure enough, fast forward to 20, 25 laps to go. I see a blue number 3 moving kind of slow. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure damage was turned off, so I don't think he has damage. I think I'm knowing what's maybe coming. So, so yeah, kind of. He showed me his, this sweatshirt. I had to hold on to it quite a bit, but I mean, yeah, that's settled. And so, all of this, like, while having like a 3 to 4 second lead on What If Racing,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I'm seeing that lead drop a bit, but once that happened, just pulled away and a little bit of chaos, some guys spinning, wrecking whatever in the final laps, but in the end, ended up coming out with the win.
So okay, that extra bit of information of you shoving Sloppy down pit road, I actually did not know that.
Really.
I did not know you did that to him, and that was the reason why
And
Sloppy
again,
was
and
so
again,
far
like
back.
I and again, like I said, it was completely unintentional. Like, I don't want people thinking like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
what's a way that I can win? Oh, I can push this guy down pit road and making it
Well, okay. Well,
no,
see from
no,
my,
and see the thing, like, like there was such good hard racing at that point, and like I said before, like when there was racing at that point, you're not necessarily like really thinking about strategy. You're thinking about racing that guy in the moment, and we were going so far, so much back and forth, crossovers,
yeah.
everything were going on. One of the last things on my mind was pitting,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until like the last second I was thinking, oh, he may be pitting, but then like he drifted up, and I was like, oh, I don't think he's pitting, and then
Mm-hmm.
he came back down and bit, and I was like, oh crap, and I'm like, I
Mm.
really hope the Sloppy Nation don't turn on me here.
Yeah. So
Or,
yeah. So honestly, from my point of view, and at least my story, and again, nothing against Sloppy, but I honestly thought he was just trying to crash you out just to create a moment or create like some more like
I mean,
unnecessary
I
drama.
think too, to be fair, also like the broadcast, it didn't show that happening. I
I was
think
gonna say, yeah, because I never saw that.
the broadcast showed like was trying to figure out who was the leader at that point because it was a mix of cautions. I know Motorsports Games, who ended up winning the Open on fuel mileage, he was trying to stretch it as long as with maybe 2 or 3 other guys. So they were
Yep.
just trying to figure out who the leaders were. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I mean, I guess just about that incident in general. I mean,
For sure.
I really don't think about that incident anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in the end, I ended up winning the race. I became $200 richer.
Yeah.
And I was, and, like, and what, like, he didn't. I mean, he walked away with something too, with $50. So in that stage 2 win. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Did you spend that money already, or did you enjoy it, or what'd you do with it?
Yeah. So I think what did I do with it? Oh well, first off, just like from I get 10 a little bit, but as far as like what came out of winning that race,
Mm-hmm.
I talked before, like, if I could just get in that race, that could, boost my YouTube. It could boost
Yep.
like my following in general.
Yep.
Literally, my following doubled in like about like within the week,
That's awesome, dude.
and I am like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed. Like this is a huge break that I needed to be able to get my name out there for season two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once qualification process starts up, what's exactly going to be starting up here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, that's the biggest thing that was on my mind. It wasn't necessarily the $200. It wasn't necessarily um, like winning the race itself. It was like hey, putting on a show in front of people who watch core, people who are fans of these YouTubers who are in this race.
Mm-hmm.
Like if all these like fans of core, all these fans of YouTubers see that this guy C Workman 388 won this race. They're like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, I want to follow him a little bit. Hey, he seems like a really cool driver. Like he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's why I say like I cannot thank the people at Core enough for giving me that opportunity, because if they hadn't, I wouldn't have the following or support that I would today, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's like smaller compared to what they have. But um, it definitely gave the jump start that I need. Um,
Mm-hmm.
now, as far as uh, what did with the $200, I kind of invested into some stuff like that I'm eyeing towards my YouTube channel. So, for example, these invest in that a
Mm-hmm.
little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Before, I just had like an old pair of like white headphones um, that had a mic built into the cord that I was using as a headset. So I was able to finally get like an actual legit gaming headset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other stuff too, like I haven't spent it all. Like I mean, when I spent, I've obviously spent like other stuff during that time, but like stuff like okay, I'm like I'm gonna plan on getting like a webcam.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I put it towards just personal stuff, personal needs. I really need at the time financially. Um, but but yeah, definitely like return the favor. Some of that money I'll say contributed towards sponsoring um, the Core League Season 2 race at Kansas.
Mm.
Going to be called Sea Workman's Polka Party in the Heartland.
Ha,
You
nice.
also you also go check that out once their race shows up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, just like being in that race was just a huge blessing. I felt like, and it was great just to be invited in that race, and like just the following, everything that came out of that was amazing,
Mm.
and I couldn't have asked for more.
Well, no, I'm glad I was able to set this up for
Yeah.
everyone and you guys. So yeah, it was really cool how like cause first of all, you know that this was my idea, right? The Summer
Hmm.
Showdown. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I did it for 3 years before, and after the 2018 Summer Showdown, I promised a 2019 Summer Showdown, but it wasn't the way that like you expected it, like with the
Hmm.
core drivers and whatnot. Like I was going to use NASCAR Racing 2003 season, but just because of some heartaches and just some stupid garbage that I had to deal with on my end, I could not
Hmm.
do that anymore. But I did promise, and it's like, okay, what could I do to give back? So then I reached out to Darian, Jared, and crew and just brought out this idea just to help with core as one little send off before we all merge or move over to NASCAR Heat 4. And no, I just like honestly just I love seeing these different people from different backgrounds coming together for this like joint effort, and to see someone like you because you're not, I mean, like, no offense, but like before, not many people did know who you
Hmm.
were. Like, I didn't know who
Exactly.
you were,
Exactly.
but to see you come out and like beat What If, beat Sloppy, and like actually like put on a show is phenomenal.
Hmm.
And I'm really glad that you're able to get this following, and hopefully you are able to continue forward with your progress, and hopefully you do get into
Hmm.
the eSports Master Heat League, whatever, next year, man. No,
Hmm.
you definitely have a lot moving forward for you, man, and I'm so glad I was able to help you out.
Yeah. Well, I said I really appreciate it, and like I feel by far more confident going into season two of this qualification process, knowing that hey, I have a much higher following in PR now going into the season than last season. I mean, we saw like just kind of learning like from how the process went last year, like certain things to do, certain things not to do. Um, And I mean, I know there's rumors regarding, like they may expand the roster, like whether if it's an additional series or just more drivers per team in general.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I don't know, obviously, but I mean, just being like a spectator and like up to this point, like as always, like I didn't want to be the guy that just kind of sat back and kicked and moaned and whatever just because I didn't get selected.
mm,
I wanted to be known as the guy, like, okay, what can I do um, after going through this process and learning how to apply what I learned for for season two when that approaches. And
mm,
personally, I mean, I feel like a little biased when saying this, but I feel like I'm like one of the only people that's really done that, and that's basically been working since day one, since the draft for season one happened. Between getting in these leagues, being in these invitational events like the Core Summer Showdown,
mm,
um, and then just building skill in general. Um, I feel like that, like I feel pretty. I mean, obviously, like after getting rejected once before and coming so close, like there's always that doubt that lurks, like hey, are you doing this all for naught again?
right.
But I just getting encouragement from everybody, like between pro league drivers, um, drivers from within the league, people that just follow me in general, like just constantly keep pushing me to keep doing this. It's just really encouraging, and just like I don't think I can afford to give up on this, and I think the following and everything that I've gained since then is kind of a motivator and like just to know, like hey, keep going forward to this, and eventually get rewarded.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, I would definitely love to keep talking to you more, but we are out of time. Is there any, I guess, final thoughts, questions, anything that's on your mind you want to throw my way?
Um, well, like what questions for you or
I mean, just anything on your mind, like any last minute things.
oh, um, well, I guess, well, first off, looking at the time, I know I have a league race in about an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, for I guess for those who want to see me in action tonight, tune over. I will actually be live streaming my onboard, but uh, Midnight Broadcasting Network's Pocono Raceway Cup Series at Las Vegas tonight will be rolling off in about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
We got pro lead drivers like Sloppy, Slade, Nick Jobs, Bear, Voltage. Like 10 of the 14 pro league guys are in that series. So I think with the pro league being an off season right now, that is definitely the series to watch. Got my first win in that series 2 weeks ago, so we definitely got momentum heading into there. So if you want to watch my onboard, go to my channel, C Workman 388.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have that on board up in about an hour. And if you just want to watch it from like a race broadcast perspective, you can tune into Midnight Broadcasting Network. That is the name of their YouTube name. And yeah, you can just watch it from a TV broadcast there. But yeah, Griff, thanks for having me. Thanks for the work you put in for the Summer Showdown for me to be able to succeed in that.
Mm-hmm.
And but hey, the journey's just starting. Like I just can't wait to see where everything goes from here. Like everything is taken off so well, and uh, I just can't thank good Lord enough for giving me this opportunity, this talent to do what I love, the people that I've met through this process, and yeah, we'll keep putting in workman.
All right, well, amen to that. So, Cody, thank you so much for this talk, man. It's been a thrill to talk to you about NASCAR and the esports stuff. And yeah, so if you guys want to follow him, I have the link to his Twitter in the description. And then once this stream is done, I will also link the YouTube channel. So if you want to follow him in his race tonight and watch Workman put the work in, man, whatever,
Putting in
put
close enough.
whatever. He's going to put the work in and he's going to kick butt. So, Cody, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
And that'll do it for us. So, thank you guys so much for watching. And this is Griffin Spear saying so long until next time. Bye bye. And